as kind of second life, but a much bigger and better, grander second life. I don't know whether you can rule that out. It may be philosophically absurd, but even if it were true, once again we would have the regress. You cannot have complexity, you cannot have the sort of complexity to build a computer, to build a second life software to run us, unless the creatures that built that computer evolved. Maybe they're also somebody else's second life, but sooner or later regresses of that kind have to be terminated. You cannot suddenly invent complexity and intelligence. The only way to do it is to start from primeval simplicity and work up gradually. Darwin discovered one way in which you can go from primeval simplicity to prodigies of complexity, and who knows where that might end. There may be other ways. Obviously I can't imagine what they would be, or I would have won the Nobel Prize for suggesting them. But whatever they are going to be like Darwinism, in that they are going to build progressively on primeval simplicity and work up gradually to the sort of complexity that's capable of living, that's capable of thinking, that's capable of building rockets that can go to other star systems, or that's capable of building a computer to simulate life. I'm going to stop there and pass on to part 4, which is... No, I haven't really got time, have I? 5 minutes. If anybody has questions, not necessarily about what I've said, but my part 4 theme was to have been, if I'd had time for it, was to have been how to deal with creationists. Anybody got any questions they want to answer?
There's a word that keeps cropping up in some of your writings, and even in Dr. Thompson, altruism. And it seems that, I'm not sure how the word is used in England, but having lived here in a very religious society, your idea of a your scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, reciprocity, that's not the way people understand the word here. And since we can't seem to, nobody can agree on the word, and we're in the minority, did we just use mutual reciprocity and abandon the word altruism?
No, I don't see why we should do that. I think that altruism is a word in the English language that people understand. Mutual reciprocity is an explanation for altruism. It's not the only one necessarily. I think we need to keep separate the phenomenon itself from the explanation. Thank you.
The question I need to present to you is, I come from a small town. The vast majority of people in this town are Christians, many of them fundamentalist Christians. I run a karate and yoga school there, in which the vast majority of them are these Christians, and I spend no small amount of time explaining that bowing and yoga postures have no ecclesiastical significance whatsoever. However, if I want to say what I'd love to say, much of which I get from your writing, I wouldn't be able to enjoy living in the woods, raising my children in an excellent public school system, and a lot of the other things that go with living in a small town. So please, how can I put some of our clever bumper stickers on my truck and still enjoy interacting with these folks? How can I... the best you can get is a draw in a discussion, because religion is embarrassing to the religious.
It's obviously a difficult problem which I'm not capable of solving. I can only hope that gradually more and more people who think like you will start to recognize each other, and it will start to become less unusual in a small town. And I think there may really be a critical mass phenomenon, whereby once a certain critical mass, numbers of people have been reached, it'll just suddenly go, and then lots of other people, the dam will burst, and then lots of other people will realize that they've thought like you all along.
I find that living in the southern United States, I'm surrounded by probably a higher population of creationists, or what I would call morons. And I find myself talking to common friends about the debate between the two, And it seems what always happens is something very similar to what happens with you and Ben Stein, where they keep saying, well, how did that happen? Well, how did that happen? And they keep going on till we reach a point where I do not have the knowledge of biology to answer the question. And they tend to use that point of the argument and saying, aha, I got you. What would you recommend for someone like me who has a basic understanding of biology and evolutionary theory, but not a complex knowledge in dealing with that type of problem in a discussion?
Well, I don't think that the detailed knowledge that you're complaining of lack of actually is going to help anyway, because when it finally comes down to it, you should be winning the argument, because you are on the side of explanation in terms of true scientific phenomena that can be that really can offer an explanation. They are caught in this regress that I've mentioned, where they are simply looking for a gap in your knowledge and then saying God did it. But you finally get the last word by saying, but that doesn't help, because who did God? I mean, you've got to put it better than that, but it's never going to be an explanation. You can say, well, I'm not a biologist, so I can't give you the details of how the bacterial flagellum evolved, or whatever it is. But what I can say is that if there is an answer to that, science will find it. And your answer, the theistic answer, cannot be an answer.
I have a half-sister that is going to one of the craziest local churches anywhere near where I live. They actually preach things like the ludicrous stories that fossils were placed there by the devil to test their faith, and that black people don't have souls. I wish I was kidding. And she is a strong, devout believer in creationism. I was wondering if you think there is absolutely any hope for these people to get out of this mental hole in the ground that has absolutely no point to it.
I didn't really hear that, but it's to me as though that might be a question for Dr. Thompson, rather for a psychologist, rather than for me.
I'm from a much more typical Bible Belt town, Augusta, Georgia, and I work in television news, unfortunately, in Augusta. And because our target audience, our demographic is conservative Christian, we get away with a lot of Christian stories that otherwise we wouldn't be able to, because that's our audience, 95% Christians. I know you've been on CNN and unfortunately Fox News, some other mainstream media here. Can you just tell me a little bit about what you think about the mainstream media concerned religion-wise in the United States and your experiences with that?
I don't have that much experience. I believe that the perception that the United States is an overwhelmingly Christian country may be exaggerated. Christopher Hitchens is certainly of that opinion. Whenever I have traveled in the so-called Bible Belt, I have received, if anything, warmer receptions than I have in the nominally more civilized parts of the country. And maybe I'm putting too positive a spin on it, but my interpretation of that is that there may be a lot more hostility to religion, even in the Bible Belt, than many people realize. And once again, I come back to the critical mass phenomenon. It may be that there's just a sort of slumbering, not exactly majority, but a very substantial minority who are just waiting for the confidence to come out. And the broadcasting media will surely reflect that when it happens. But as somebody who's in the broadcasting media, I would encourage you to be courageous and to do something unpopular, and actually don't just pander, don't just cater to the majority taste of your audience, but go out there and tell them what's what.
Working on. I'm only 24. I'm getting it.
Hi. Question. Thank you. All right. You've done debates all around the world. Have you ever had a clever or interesting argument from the other side?
No.